The form arrived on a Tuesday. I know that detail because I was the one who logged it into the intelligence registry, diplomatic correspondence, inbound Vethani closed compact, reference number 7 Sigma 4419 NC. NC stood for navigation closure. That was what they called it. A navigation incident closed. 11 ships, 4,206 people. Medical relief crew, diplomatic staff, cargo handlers, 2 journalists, 1 retired ambassador traveling as an observer. All of them sealed inside a quarantine envelope, a gravitational boundary weapon dressed in administrative language, and held there for 19 days while the envelope decayed around them. The Vethani did not fire a shot. They simply closed the system and waited, and when the last hull gave out they sent us a form. I read it 3 times. The language was precise, which is a Vethani quality I had once admired. The envelope, the form explained, had been activated in response to an unregistered incursion into compact sovereign navigational space. The subsequent loss of vessels was attributed to failure to comply with evacuation procedures outlined in Compact Navigation Code, Subarticle 7 Sigma, Clauses 1 through 9. Earth's diplomatic mission had, the form noted with apparent regret, failed to file the correct transit declaration 14 hours prior to entry. The envelope activation was therefore automatic, legal, and closed. The form requested acknowledgement of receipt within 30 standard days. I sent the acknowledgement. Then I walked down 2 levels to Admiral Sira Vath's planning room, set the form on the table in front of her, and waited while she read it. She read it once, she set it down flat. "Pull the compact's quarantine doctrine," she said. "All of it. Subarticle 7 Sigma through 7 Sigma final, every clause." I pulled it that night. By morning, I had read it 4 times and understood what she had seen. The Meridian Strike Group departed Lagrange Station 6 on the 41st day after the form's arrival. 340 warships. Not a punitive squadron, not a show-of-force flotilla, a strike group sized and designated for terminal enforcement operations. The designation had been chosen carefully. Meridian. It meant the line of noon. It meant the moment when the shadow is shortest and the light is absolute. I rode aboard the Ardent Reckoning, lead dreadnought, bridge intelligence station, portside forward. My station during transit was a narrow console between the sensor array and the communications bank, and for 16 days of jump transit, I sat at that console and read Subarticle 7 Sigma until I could recite it in sequence. I read it the way you read a thing you intend to use. The Compact had designed their quarantine doctrine over 4 centuries of administrative refinement. It was, in its way, a masterpiece. It allowed for the total sealing of any navigational space designated as sovereign, the activation of gravitational boundary enforcement at any proximity, and the legal treatment of any vessel failing to depart before envelope initiation as an unauthorized presence subject to containment closure procedures. It had been used 41 times in recorded compact history, 11 times against non-compact species, never against a species that could answer. They had assumed when they filed the form that we were not the kind of species that answers. I thought about that during transit. I thought about Chief Medical Officer Daria Osai, who had been aboard the hospital ship Callow Asterisk, which was the last hull to go, on day 19. I had reviewed the signal logs. The Callow had continued broadcasting triage updates and supply requests until 6 hours before envelope collapse, because Osai's crew had continued treating the injured from the earlier hull failures and had not stopped working long enough to record a final message. The last transmission on record from the Callow was a routine pharmaceutical inventory update, time-stamped 04/17 on day 19. I thought about that inventory update. I thought about it every time I opened Subarticle 7 Sigma. By day 12 of transit, I had drafted the filing. I spent the remaining 4 days refining it, not the language, which was already correct, but the sequence of clauses. The order mattered. The compact was a species that read documents in full before responding, and I wanted them to understand exactly what they were reading before the Meridian Strike Group moved into enforcement position. We translated into the Vethani home system at 600 on the 58th day. The system held 2 inhabited worlds and 1 station complex. The compact's home fleet was present, 42 vessels in standard patrol dispersion, which was a reasonable peacetime posture and entirely insufficient for what they were about to receive. I watched them on the sensor display. Their formation adjusted when we translated in. They shifted to intercept spacing, which was procedurally correct. Then they counted us, and the formation did not adjust again for 11 seconds, which on a military bridge is a very long time. Admiral Vath gave one order. Send the filing. I transmitted it. Compact standard format, diplomatic correspondence, inbound to Vethani Compact Central Administrative Authority, reference number 7 Sigma 4420 QE. QE stood for Quarantine Envelope. The filing was 6 pages. I will summarize it here. Page 1 acknowledged receipt of the Compact's navigation closure form, reference 7 Sigma 4419 NC, pertaining to the destruction of 11 Earth vessels and 4,206 Earth personnel within Compact-designated navigational space on the dates specified. Page 2 noted that under Subarticle 7 Sigma of Compact Navigation Code, the right to designate and enforce quarantine envelopes within sovereign navigational space was universal and reciprocal, meaning any signatory species with recognized sovereignty over navigational space held equivalent authority under the same doctrine. Earth held such recognition. The filing cited the relevant treaty clause, which the Compact itself had drafted. Page 3 formally designated the Vethani home system, both inhabited worlds, the station complex, and all navigational space within the system's heliopause, as a closed envelope under Subarticle 7 Sigma, activated in response to the confirmed destruction of Earth diplomatic and medical personnel without prior warning, negotiation, or declared hostility. The designation was automatic, legal, and in full compliance with Compact doctrine. Page 4 outlined the evacuation procedures available to Compact vessels and personnel. They were the same procedures outlined in the form the Compact had sent us. 14 hours advance notice of departure. Correct transit declaration filed in triplicate. Acknowledgement of envelope authority by the departing vessel's senior officer. The 14-hour window had been calculated from the moment of transmission. I had checked the math 6 times. Page 5 noted that the Meridian Strike Group, acting as authorized enforcement authority under Earth's sovereign quarantine rights, would hold position at envelope boundary and enforce containment closure procedures in accordance with Subarticle 7 Sigma, Clauses 1 through 9, for a period of 19 days. 19 days. Precise. I had chosen the number and Admiral Vath had approved it without discussion. Page 6 requested acknowledgement of receipt within 30 standard days. The Compact's home fleet moved toward us 4 minutes after the transmission arrived. 42 ships. I watched them on my display and I felt nothing that I would call rage. What I felt was a kind of absolute cold clarity, the same clarity I had felt reading that pharmaceutical inventory update at 04:17 on day 19. The Callow *S crew had not known they were going to die. They had been counting medications. Strike Group, Admiral Vath said, enforce the envelope. 340 warships do not maneuver quickly. They are not designed to. They are designed to be an answer that does not require speed, because their scale already contains the outcome. The Meridian Strike Group spread across the heliopause boundary in a containment arc, not a battle line, not an attack formation, a quarantine perimeter. The same shape the Compact had used 41 times in 4 centuries. We had studied their enforcement posture from intelligence records and replicated it precisely. The Compact's 42 ships reached the envelope boundary and stopped. I do not know what they had expected. Perhaps a demand, perhaps a negotiation, perhaps a species that filed complaints rather than answers. What they found was 340 warships holding a containment arc, and a filing that told them exactly what was happening and exactly why in their own language, under their own doctrine, citing their own code. Their lead vessel transmitted a challenge. It invoked compact sovereign authority and demanded we stand down. Admiral Vath looked at me. "Log it," she said, "as a failure to comply with evacuation procedures." I logged it. The compact transmitted 4 more challenges over the following 6 hours, each one escalating in register. By the 3rd transmission, they were invoking treaty violations. By the 5th, they were invoking the right of sovereign species to defend their home system. I logged each one as a failure to comply with evacuation procedures outlined in Subarticle 7 Sigma, Clauses 1 through 9. The language was theirs. I was only applying it. On day 2, 3 compact vessels attempted to transit the envelope boundary. The Meridian Strike Group enforced containment. 2 vessels withdrew. 1 did not withdraw in time. I logged it as a containment closure event, reference appended, in full compliance with Subarticle 7 Sigma. On day 4, a compact diplomatic vessel transmitted directly to my station requesting to speak with the commanding officer. The request was formally structured, correct protocol, correct honorifics. I forwarded it to Admiral Vath. She drafted a response. It was 1 sentence. Evacuation procedures remain available under Subarticle 7 Sigma through day 14 of the designated envelope period. No threats, no demands, no speeches. We had said everything there was to say in 6 pages on day 1. Everything after that was enforcement. On day 7, the Compact's Central Administrative Authority transmitted a formal protest to the Earth Council, copied to every species in the Galactic Register. It described the Meridian Strike Group's actions as illegal, disproportionate, and in violation of interstellar norms governing the treatment of home systems. The protest was detailed and legally argued. It cited 17 treaty provisions and 4 centuries of compact precedent. It did not, I noticed, cite Subarticle 7 Sigma. We received the protest on the bridge. Admiral Vath read it. She handed it to me. "File it," she said. I filed it as diplomatic correspondence, inbound, reference 7 Sigma 4421 FP. FP stood for formal protest. I noted in the registry that the protest had been received and logged, and that Earth's position remained as stated in filing 7 Sigma 4420 QE. On day 14, 2 compact colony vessels and 1 diplomatic transport filed correct evacuation declarations and transited the envelope. I processed their paperwork. It was correct in all particulars, 14 hours advance notice, transit declarations in triplicate, acknowledgement of envelope authority by the senior officer. I cleared them without comment. They were the only vessels that left. On day 19, at 600, I drafted the closure form. It was 1 page, compact standard format. It noted that the quarantine envelope designated under filing 7 Sigma 4420 QE had reached its scheduled end period without further enforcement actions required. The envelope was hereby closed. The Meridian Strike Group would withdraw to the heliopause boundary and stand down to standard patrol posture. It requested acknowledgement of receipt within 30 standard days. I transmitted it. Admiral Vath watched it go. "Navigation clear," she said to the helm. "Begin withdrawal sequence." I sat at my console for a moment after the order was given. Outside the viewports, the Vethani home system turned, unhurried, 2 inhabited worlds catching their stars light the way worlds do, without regard for what had just happened around them. The 42 compact ships were still at the envelope boundary. Their formation had not changed in 11 days. I thought about the pharmaceutical inventory update. I thought about Daria Osai, who had been counting medications at 04, 17 on day 19, and who had not known it was the last thing she would ever count. I closed my console log. I labeled the file Navigation Incident, closed. We had answered their paperwork with ours. We had used their doctrine, their clauses, their format, their precedent, and their 19 days. We had not deviated from their own code by a single clause. That was the message, not the warships. The warships were only the enforcement mechanism. The message was the filing. The message was that we had read their documents, understood their system, and decided that if the compact lived and died by its own procedures, then it would learn what those procedures felt like from the other side. They had sent us a form. We sent one back.